Whoever said you can't fight City Hall never met my next guest. He's the host of the very popular syndicated television show, Consumer Byline. And in this brand new book, Fight Back and Don't Get Ripped Off, he outlines a strategy of awareness and action for our own self-defense in the marketplace. And Lord knows we need it. Here's David Horowitz. Yeah. David? Nice to meet you.
It's nice finally to meet you.
Have you two ever met before?
Never met.
We've never met before.
Watch him all the time.
I do too.
Cheer him at home. I like those guys on the white Chargers who lead you to victory. And you certainly have, David.
Well, thank you, Merv.
Of all the things you've done, uncovered, what do you consider your most successful?
The thing that I really enjoyed doing most was the sausage caper. What I did is I went out to the market and bought some sausage, became ill after eating it. Later on, I realized, going back to the refrigerator, that there was mold on the back of the sausage. Called the company to report it to the company. The company came out to the house, and of course, they come out to your house and they say, well, I'm sorry you got sick. Sign this waiver, and here are 4 packages of sausage.
Right.
Okay? So the guy's standing in the kitchen, my wife's there, and I said, just for the fun of it, why don't we open these packages and see if these are okay? The representative from this major national sausage packing company opens each package, and each one of them is green with mold.
Oh.
Now, you can imagine the look on his face. I thought he was going to go through the kitchen floor. He said, oh, give me those packages back. I'll take them back and get you some others. I said, no, let me have them. And I took them and I put them in the freezer. And I reported them to the health department. And the health department seized all the sausage in Southern California.
Good Lord.
To find out what the problem was. And this is what we found out. This is because I got sick on some sausage. We found out that the law says if sausage is pre-cooked and frozen, then it must remain in a frozen state when it's sold at the market. But we found out that sausage, which is an impulse item, as many meat products are, was being sold in the fresh fruit case defrosted. And the labels didn't indicate that. So as a result of what happened to me, the major sausage makers in the United States all are marketing their pre-cooked frozen sausage in the freezer case. That's why you find only fresh sausage in the fresh fruit case, and the rest of it in the freezer case, and it's labeled properly. But it wasn't the sausage makers who were screwing up. The people that were screwing up were the government people, because they were not enforcing their own regulations on the outside of the package, saying this product has been frozen, keep in a frozen state or a refrigerated state after thawing.
It's only the beginning, folks. There'll be more right after this message. We'll be back. There is a lady living in New York whose first name is Dora. And Dora, I want to say hello to her, is a terrific lady because she got David Horowitz started on his campaign to get things better for the consumer. And, of course, that's his mother.
That's right.
Did she really say to you, something's got to be done, or did she teach you how to buy?
No, my mother and father are both Europeans. My father was born in France. My mother comes from Eastern Europe.
Right.
They were immigrants. I'm first-generation American. And, you know, as immigrants, they didn't speak the language. They didn't know a lot of what was going on. They were ripped off a lot. So they became aware through osmosis.
Right.
You know, it just seeped into them. Hey, we're being taken. We're being taken. And, of course, being the firstborn son in the family, I became the prized possession. And she would carry me everywhere she went. When she fought with the produce guy, and you know, one of the things in the book I talk about is the story about the fruit. You know, she went in to buy some oranges, 2 for a nickel, and she wanted the orange for 2 cents. She said, why should one be 3 cents and one be 2 cents? They went back and forth.
Yeah.
And finally, the produce guy, just to get rid of her, gave her the orange at the cheaper price, all right? She gets home, cuts open the orange, which is going to be my afternoon snack, and she found out it was dried out. She picked me up, went back to the market, told the guy to give her another orange, and said to him, if you sell rotten and dried fruit like this, I'm going to report you to the health department.
Oh,
But she always made her presence felt. And when she went back to that produce market, Dora got the best fruit, the best vegetables, the best of everything.
But, David, let me suggest to you, though,
Yeah.
that was a couple of years ago.
Many.
Those stores were neighborhood stores like mom-and-pop stores.
Right.
Today, it's very difficult to go into these huge supermarkets we have where there's a line behind you and start fighting with the clerk because they can make it very uncomfortable for
Not true. And I'll give you an example of what happened. My wife does not do most of the shopping. I do most of the shopping, but she occasionally will go and buy some vegetables and things, milk for the baby and things like that. She has been shopping in this market where the produce is steadily going down the tubes. I mean, lousy lettuce, soft tomatoes that have no taste, stuff that shouldn't even be on the shelves, all right? She went to the market manager and said, either you get good produce in this market, or I'm never coming back to this market again, and I want to know who the district manager is because I want to call him. She got the name of the district manager. She called this guy. She told him what was going on in the market. She said, you know, you are losing your competitive edge because your stuff is rotten, literally rotten. And you know, they found out that they had a problem. They were getting deliveries twice a week. Produce was staying there when it shouldn't be there. And now what they're doing is they're delivering fresh produce 4 times a week, and the produce guy is cleaning all the bad stuff out and throwing it away because she complained. The point is, when I say fight back and don't get ripped off, you don't have to go and hit them over the head with a hammer. But you say about the supermarket, bring things to their attention. You always seem to be stuck in the market where you're 15th on a line in the checkout stand, right?
Right.
They never have enough checkers. How many of you have ever gone to the market manager and said, hey, listen, I like to shop in this market. My time is worth money, too. If you don't do something about these long lines, not only am I not going to shop here, but I'm going to tell my neighbors not to shop here, and that represents a loss to you. Now, you might say, well, what does he care? Supermarkets care about net profit, and net profit is brought on by volume. And if they start losing customers and the word of mouth gets around at this market, you have to wait forever on the checkout line. They don't have enough checkers. In a small community, even though it's a large supermarket, it works. It works.
See, I can't do it. I'm too timid. I did it once, a prime rib of beef. And I had company for dinner. And the cook called me in the kitchen and she said, look, Merv, at this. And it was all fat.
But was it prime rib?
Yep.
You know what prime rib is?
It was, I don't know. But it was all fat. So I said to her, take all the fat and put it in a pie pan. And then I went back to the butcher the next day. And right in front of us, all of his customers said, this is the prime rib you sold me for $9,000. And I gave him all his fat.
And he probably took it back.
Oh, he took it back. He said, I can use that. And, and then he said, no, he gave me another prime rib, but not free.
But was it prime rib? Because that's
How do you
another
tell?
point.
Well, it has bones.
Well, no. It should be USDA prime, and it should be stamped on the carcass. Now, when we go into a restaurant, here's another example of awareness. I have a whole chapter on restaurants. You go in and you see prime rib on the menu.
Yeah.
How do you know that that is USDA prime, which is the top cut of meat, okay? You don't know, and in a lot of restaurants we have found not only are they not serving USDA prime or USDA choice, but they're selling a no-roll product, an ungraded product that is full of fat, where the texturizing in the meat is not that good, and they season it up with MSG and all this kind of stuff. And you might say, well, how do you find out? Well, you could ask. In most cases, the waitress or the waiter will look at you and go, oh, I don't know. What do you care for? When you're paying $12.95 for a cut of prime rib, I care, okay? I care how it tastes. I care to know that it's USDA prime if they're saying it's prime rib. And if it isn't USDA prime, my feeling is, and there are laws in California that require that in LA County, that they should put on the menu prime rib, USDA choice, or ungraded meat, so that you know what you're buying.
That what prime rib means, USDA prime?
But there's
I didn't
also,
know that.
well, prime rib is also part of the cow that they get it
That's
from,
what I
right?
thought.
But
best
prime
part of the
rib,
cow.
prime rib is USDA prime. They can take meat, which they do now, I don't know if you're aware of this, and they restructure it. In other words, they take various cuts of meat and they like break them up and restructure them into steaks, like some of these quickie steak places. If you go in there and you slice the steak and you're not getting a cut but it breaks apart, you pretty well know that you're getting restructured meat. And if they say they're giving you a steak and the meat starts breaking apart, you say to them, I thought I was getting a steak instead of restructured meat. But the point is, Merv, that a lot of us are totally unaware of this.
Now, are you also, we had a kid on here,
Yeah.
Ricky Schroeder, who stars in The Champ.
Yeah.
Wonderful little
Yeah, I've-
actor.
I've seen him.
With John Voight, 10 years old. Do you know what he said here on the air?
What?
Okay. We got talking, and he's very innocent, and he's not theatrical, and he said everything right out loud. And I said, Ricky, what's your experience in movies? John Voight is sitting here, Ricky here. And he said, I make commercials. And I said, what commercials? And he named a famous chicken commercial. And I said, well, boy, I bet that's a delicious commercial to make. He said, oh, we can't eat it because they paint it. And the audience did exactly what you did. So I said, oh, do they? He said, oh, they have to paint it to make it look good in a commercial. And I said, oh, what other commercials have you done? And he named a soup. And I said, well, I'll bet you ate that soup, didn't you, Ricky? He said, Oh, no, because, you see, they put marbles in there to make it look chunky. But I'm not naming the companies. He named them. And so then the audience is going, whoa! He said, you want to hear about the paper towels? The kid went crazy, and he blew the whistle on everybody.
Good for him.
But he didn't know he was doing it.
But we watch these commercials,
Yeah.
and we don't realize how they have us totally psyched out. And I have a chapter about that, how to look at the commercials and see what is fact and what is fiction, how they have us totally psyched out. For instance, butter and margarine. Now, you all see those butter margarine
Yeah.
commercials. Do you ever see anyone who is in the margarine commercial picking butter? They all pick margarine, and they can't tell the difference between the taste. Now, on my Consumer Byline show, what we did is we went into a market, and we set up that commercial. We set up that commercial. We had 11 people taste it. We had the 2 crackers and the doilies, and which is the margarine, which is the butter. And 11 out of 11 people picked butter. They said the butter tastes better, okay? Now, you know, they pick butter. But the point is this. What they do by playing with our minds is they make us feel that if we buy the margarine, we're in the majority. And you know, they might have gone through hundreds of people to get those people to pick the margarine. And what we're trying to do, though, is not to really blast them, but to get the people who are making these commercials be honest. If it's a margarine commercial, show us some people who pick the butter.
Right.
If it's the Pepsi challenge, yeah, we found out more people do prefer Pepsi, okay? But show us the people, when we went out and did the test, we found Pepsi drinkers who picked Coke, and we found people who didn't like Pepsi or Coke like Dr. Pepper, you know? But they don't do this in the commercials because they think we're a bunch of dummies that aren't going to fight back and are going to just sit there and watch it and buy the product.
Let me ask you, David, do you have a lot of sponsors waiting to get on your show?
Yes.
Huh?
As a matter of fact, this is the interesting thing. Our show, in many of the cities that it plays in, is the highest rated primetime show in its primetime access in its time period.
7 to
it's
8.
7:30 to 8 here in Los Angeles, 6:30 in the Midwest, whatever. And it seems that we deliver a very strong audience of buying people, mostly women 18 to 49, which is the big buying area, okay? They buy in our shows like the old story. I don't care what you say about us, as long as you mention our name, but we want your program. But what we don't do on the show is we don't knock sponsors. We test their commercials.
Now, let me ask you this. Is there an industry in America that is more guilty of ripping off the people most guilty than any other? I mean, if you look at autos, fuel, appliances, canned goods, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables.
You know who is, if you're going to say most guilty about being ripped off? All of us, the people in the audience, all of us sitting here. Because we do not do our homework.
No, but who's most guilty, though, of ripping the public off? One industry.
I can't say because there isn't one industry, and unless you know what the guilt is, you can't go after them. Like, for instance, the advertising agencies. How many people in the audience have ever written a letter to the product that they advertise, the margarine, saying, show us the people who pick butter? Or how many people did you have to go through to get the people who pick margarine? Let's hear it. How many people have ever done that? We have 2 people in the audience. The point is, when I say fight back and don't get ripped off, we rip ourselves off because of our own lack of awareness and knowledge. For instance, you talk about the oil industry. Now, we have supposedly an oil shortage, okay? Prices are going crazy. We're getting gouged at the gas tank.
Right.
They're literally shoving that nozzle in there and making it hurt at the cash register, okay?
Good.
We're getting it. We're getting it. Yet how many people here, and I'm not saying boycott gasoline, I'm saying don't use your car 1 day a week, buy 5 or 10 gallons less a week, and send them a message. Because if everyone in America did that, you know, each gas station has an allotment. They get like 60,000 gallons a month. If we started loosening up on buying our gas, I will guarantee you that prices will go down and more fuel will be available, okay?
We'll be right back. David Horowitz is here. The subject of the fuel shortage and the energy crunch it covers the fronts of our newspapers and our news, our television news, nightly.
Right.
What do you say about it?
All right, well, I personally don't feel there's a fuel shortage, and I think a lot of the fuel shortage is generated by a lot of the things that we do in this country that are very wasteful. Like, for instance, so much fuel is diverted into petrochemical products, like the plastic stirrers we put in our drinks. Do you know how much petroleum we waste by just sticking that plastic stir in our drink and throwing it away? or the packaging on products which are made from petrochemicals, or those little paper cups that we drink our coffee in that are not made out of paper, but they're made out of petrochemical-based products.
You mean styrofoam?
Styrofoam, all this stuff, vinyl, it's coming from chemicals, and so much of it is just wasted in this country. We just throw it away. Not only that, it's things that are derived because of power. Glass. How many of you here recycle any of your glass or aluminum cans? That person down there is great. She does everything that a super consumer should do.
She's the one with a wine bottle.
That's right. But I mean, just think of it. It takes so much energy to produce glass, to produce cans, and I'm not saying, hey, let's go crazy and save everything, save the newspaper to recycled every day. But you want to know something? A way to cut down on our dependence on fuel is to do that, is to give stuff back to the recycling plants. And you want to know something? They pay top dollar for recycled aluminum cans, for glass,
If I
for
had
paper,
glass
for
that I wanted to
cardboard.
sell, for example, if I was going to replace all the glass in my house, what would I do with that glass?
Well, what you would do with the glass, I don't know, would be a pain to get rid of.
Wait till I tell Beverly Sills that joke.
I hope you're not looking at a window.
No. Why, isn't that the same glass that you're talking about?
Yeah, you can use that kind of glass.
Sell
It
that
can
back to be recycled?
Well, what the glass companies do is they will not break it out. They will cut it out. Right? And they will probably use it on another job, which is fine. You're saving energy, and there is a market in used glass.
Everybody goes after the car industry. You
Right.
don't.
Well, I don't go after the automobile industry for several reasons. One is, in order to do it, you have to have some facts to get them. And the car in this country is an extension of our foot. And I think a lot of the problems that we bring on with the automobile are our own problems. I mean, Detroit is manufacturing these monster machines with electric windows and electric rear view mirrors and tape decks and computer readout radios and all these things. You know that there are about 15,000 parts on an average automobile. Each one of them can cause a problem, and most of them are done because of consumer demand. But when people buy these things, they don't realize consumer demand can also mean consumer problems. You know, as far as auto emission controls, I'm not really into the scientific analysis of whether we're getting poisoned to death by exhaust. But what we are is we're fools when we buy automobiles, because an automobile should be one thing, transportation.
Right.
Yeah, you can have a fancier car, a car that isn't too fancy, but we demand so much of the automakers, that's what's escalating the price of cars, along with some of the safety requirements that might not be necessary, like airbags. You know, they're going to be putting airbags in cars in 1980. Do you know that they found out that the chemical that they were originally trying to use, sodium azide, if it accidentally was triggered, could be lethal to you? So you don't get killed in the auto accident, you get killed by breathing in the fumes that would open up the airbag for you. Of course, they're doing research to find other ways to get the airbags going. But with the automobile industry, like someone was standing backstage and telling me a story about just buying a diesel automobile and paying $2,000 above list to get this car because he wanted to save money on the fuel. Now, I don't know. I told this guy, I said, you want to know something? I would tell him to take that car and shove it back in their lot if they're going to charge me $2,000 more for the privilege of buying that car. And yet people are so desperate because of the fuel shortage and trying to get a car that has good mileage and economy, they'll overpay. And what they do is they set a precedent which allows other people to be ripped off, not because they're unaware of it, but because they're willing to be made suckers of and intimidated.
Bravo.
That's the point.
Don't miss David Horowitz's book. Fight back and don't get ripped off. And we'll be right back, and James Darren will join us.